Um,
Rinse these out.
just a second. Okay, we have all kinds of stuff going on in here today. Now, I am making the first batch of relish, and the only thing that I have left to add in here is some vinegar. Now, this recipe is an experiment. Okay. Okay, if you are hanging out here, I'm kind of talking and not talking, and this is an incredibly unscheduled live, but I thought if I was going to be hanging out in the kitchen making some pickles, I might as well do it live. So if any of you are harvesting out of your garden or buying at a farmer's market or doing whatever it is that you're doing and you have a bunch of produce, you might like to make some sweet relish as well. So we are okay. Now I have water and vinegar in the pot along with some dill and turmeric. And what else do I have in there? I've got dill and turmeric and celery seed and ground mustard, and I am adding 560 grams of cucumbers, give or take, and 160 grams of onions. Now, I don't know, can you guys see this? I have to turn this camera just a bit so you can see this pot of goodness. Now, I boiled this already. I'm just going to set my scale down here and get this out of the way and set this bowl off to the side. Now, I am all over the place today. Now, this is going to be an absolutely delicious relish, I do believe, but you are here hanging out with me while I am doing this for the first time, so we will find out together. Now, you combine the spices, the vinegar, the water, get that all in there. Well, hello, guess who's here again? I'm always so glad when you show up, Mama. So if she can't be here, she can at least be hanging out with me while I'm doing this. So, online, if she can't be here in person, she can be here online. Now, I'm going to start this, and while this is coming to a boil, okay, so do you guys want to know what I put in this pot? Are you going to make some pickles? Let me tell you. So, we have 560 grams of cucumbers, 160 grams of onions, 2 tablespoons of Redmond's real salt. Please, please, please do not use table salt. And if you buy pickling salt, at least pickling salt doesn't have any of the anti-caking agents and all the other weirdness that they put in there. There is 1 1/4 cups of vinegar and a quarter cup of water? No, half cup of water. 2 grams of celery seed, 2 grams of mustard seed, 4 grams of turmeric, and 10 grams of dill, and half a cup of Amson Naturals. Good time for a taste test. Amson Naturals brown sugar substitute. And so the celery and the onions are all diced up, and you do not cook them. I'm going to bring this just to a boil. And then I am going to move this out of the way. I have some jars that have been thoroughly washed and boiled. And I'm going to set those jars here. These are very, very hot. And making sure that your jars are well sterilized is key, especially if you are doing this to put down for the winter. You don't need any bacteria growing in there. Okay, I have 2 more jars. Now, hopefully I have enough jars here. We'll see. So the vinegar, the water, the spices, and the sweetener go in the pot. You bring it to a boil and just let it simmer, a slow boil, I guess, until the sweetener has dissolved. And once the sweetener has dissolved, hey, Jen. Let me get you guys back here where I can see you. Once the sweetener has dissolved, you just leave it until you are ready to put your relish in jars. And here's the thing about doing a live that you're not really prepared to do, and I truly wasn't. You kind of are all over the place, and this is not something that I do a lot. Okay, needs something to hold on to that one. Okay. You know what? We are going to find my canning funnel. It's one of those things that you really don't use very often, but when you need it, you need it. And when you need it, where did she put it? I actually use this more often than you would think, and since we're going to be using this, I'm just going to throw it in the boiling water for a minute. Making sure that everything you're using is sterilized is a really good idea. Oh, well, thank you, Jen. I'm glad you could be here. Okay, now because this is plastic, if you're using glass or tin or whatever you're using, you want to make sure that it stays in that boiling water for at least 3 to 5 minutes. And this is going to help make sure that I don't make any more of a mess than I have to make. Okay. And then, once you're ready to put these in jars, you put the cucumbers and the onions in the pickling liquid, and you just bring it to a boil. And as soon as it starts boiling, I'm going to put a little more in here. As soon as it starts boiling, you want to get it in the jars. And I'm not too worried about keeping this really hot right this second, because this is going to go back in a canning kettle. And it is going to cook in that canning kettle for 20 minutes, half an hour. You want to make sure, okay, taste test. Yep, I'm thinking we've done a good job here. You guys get half the credit for hanging out here and keeping me on track. Okay. Now, let's get that pushed down in there. And we'll use that jar next. Now I'm going to have one jar that is just part of a jar. I didn't make a whole batch of this because I found a recipe that I thought looked, you know, pretty good, but needed a little bit of help. Mostly because it was not going to be a sweet relish, it was going to be a savory relish, and they didn't put any dill in it, and I just can't imagine in any universe where that's okay. Well, not any universe that I'm living in anyway. So, I fixed it. Now, I want to make sure that these have got enough juice in them. There we go. Now, the rest of this is going to go in this jar with the celery seeds that are in the bottom getting scraped out, and then I'm going to do something a little bit extra in this jar. Okay, there we go. Now, in this spare jar, we are going to add half a teaspoon of dried red and green bell peppers. And we're just going to let that sit in there because these are going back into the canner. So this is, it's not something that you need to worry about having added to your recipe earlier. And I didn't need the fourth jar, so we're good there. And now I need to get the lids out. Okay. Now let's get these on here. And then we can get these back in the canner. Now, one of the things that is awesome when you use a canning funnel is that you don't get the edges of your jars all mucky, at least not if you're a little bit careful, and I try to be a little bit careful. And I am missing one of the tops to one of my jars, so it's a good thing that I ended up with only 3 jars and not 4, because somehow one of my inserts ended up being not here. Okay, I'm just going to set that in there. And then we're going to switch these around. Okay, now I am just going to leave you guys to look at the front of my fridge for a minute because I need to go and dump a good chunk of this out. Okay, now, have you guys ever watched paint dry? You know how exciting that is? Well, this is kind of like that, only you're going to watch cucumber relish boil or something. Okay, make sure that you have the lids on tight. If you don't, it'll still cook, but you'll have lots of watery relish in there. Yeah, I think probably Izzy, I've got somebody watching on Twitch asking me if I want to become famous by buying viewers, and I think I'm going to say no on that one. I think if you guys want to hang out with me, I would absolutely love that to happen all day, every day. Now the red and green peppers that I just added in here, I'm going to give this a shake because this jar is nowhere near full. So this is just the last little bit that I had. That's why I only put in half a teaspoon. And so it is going to want to float rather than sit down where it's supposed to. Okay, well, you know what? Apparently, we're just going to have all kinds of things getting knocked over. Yep. I think that's going to be good. So, now, I'm going to turn this on. Oh, let's go 3. It doesn't need to be a hard boil. We're just cooking these cucumbers, but you want them to cook in the relish juice, and you want everything to thicken and do relishy things on time. So that is what we are doing right at the moment. We'll take these over to the sink. There we go. Okay, now somewhere in my kitchen, I have part of a mandolin. I had a really good mandolin and it broke. And so I have kind of a crappy old one. And so I'm just going to see what I can do about using this to slice some pickles, because I'm doing dill pickles as well. So let's see how well this will slice. I think those slices are going to be, yep, they are going to be way too thin. Okay, knife skills time it is. There you go. So if I'm going to do that, wash my knife first, because it needs to be sharpened. Okay, so we're going to see if I can do a little better job this time than I did last time. I sharpened this knife a little earlier today. You know, if you sharpen your knife every time you use it, it never needs to be sharpened very much. And I always make a point of having my hand behind the little hilt to protect your fingers, but I did that a little earlier today, and I had my hand just enough so that I nicked my thumb. So be careful when you're doing that. If you keep your knives sharp, a cut won't hurt as much when you do it, but it will definitely bleed as much. Okay, now let's get this put back. I just love it when I have people pop in. Now, I don't know whether you guys know this or not, but I have 3 lives going on at the same time. I am on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch all at the same time. So if you're wondering where you can see me and you're ever having trouble seeing where I am, that's the other 2 places you can look for me. And if you have any questions for me about anything, I don't promise to have an answer, but I promise to give you the best answer that I do have. You know, they may be called pickling cucumbers, but any way you want to slice it. Oh, we need a timer. Alexa, set a 20-minute relish timer.
Relish timer, 20 minutes, starting now.
Now these, I mean, you can tell looking at this pickle. If I were to do this in a that's almost a single jar all by itself. So I'm slicing these because often when Della and I are having dill pickles, we want them on a sandwich or on a hot dog or hamburger, whatever. This way they're already sliced and I don't have to worry how long it's going to take for a ginormous pickle to pickle. Okay, now, so if you're picking your cucumbers out of the garden, and I am very grateful that we had some dear friends pick these out of their garden for us. But whether you're buying them at a farmer's market or picking them out of your garden, it's important that you make sure that you thoroughly wash your produce. Because this is going in the jar too, and any bacteria that may have been in the soil or, you know, the bird that landed on it or the bug that landed on it, you want to make sure that's not going into your relish or your dill pickles. And the more you practice with your knife, if you keep it sharp, the better you'll get. Okay. Now I said this morning on my live, where we made dessert, that I was going to be doing these pickles today, and I managed to get it done, so here I am. Okay, how many of you are going to be doing some preserving this fall? Are you going to be doing pickles? What kind of preserves do you make? Not a lot of jam going on in this house because not a lot of sugar going on in this house. Wow. Can you see what's happening in the pot over here? Stand this guy up, you won't be able to see what's happening. Let's turn this up a bit. It's not boiling just yet, so we'll turn it up a little bit so that it does. And we will just keep slicing cucumbers. And if anybody has any questions about keto or making pickles, I promise I know more about keto than I do about making pickles, but we can certainly try and figure it out together. You know, I was talking to someone earlier today who was telling me that if they start doing something and it doesn't work quite the way they thought that it was going to, they tend to give up because, you know, that whole practice makes perfect thing. If it isn't perfect, they don't want to practice anymore. So I shared something with them that I did the other day, and I'm going to share it with you right now too. So since Dell's been home, I have been outside playing with some of his power tools because there was some woodworking that we needed done, and with his elbow all messed up from the surgery, he couldn't do it. So this is one of the things that I did. Now I don't know how well you can see this. Now my idea when I did it was that it was going to hold business cards. And this was just a practiced one, and it is not perfect. It's far from perfect. And the design is hugely flawed. It just looks like a hot mess if you put a bunch of business cards in there. So knowing that that was just a practice run, knowing that the design was not even tried, let alone true, do you look at someone who has just made the effort to do that practice thing and say, well, if I had to give you a grade, I would say 20%. Your cuts aren't even, and this isn't even, and that isn't even, and you didn't do this, and you could. And it would be true. I graded it myself, and I said, this is just not good, and I wouldn't have given myself more than about a 20% on it as far as the design goes and, you know, the attention to detail and the skill. But the fact that if it was getting a grade, it would only get 20%, doesn't mean that I should never try again. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't try and come up with another answer. So whatever it is that you're trying to do for your health, it may not work the first time, it may not work the second time, but that doesn't ever mean that you give up. The fact that you tried something and it didn't work doesn't make you a failure. It means that you are a student and you have had an opportunity to learn something important. And if you're willing to recognize that and learn from what you've just been through, then it's a win. And you're more equipped to take another step forward and try again. You're never ever going to be perfect, but you can definitely keep doing your very best and keep getting better every time. Okay, did we set a timer? I'm thinking that we did not set a timer. Okay, Alexa, set a 15-minute relish timer.
You already have a timer called relish.
Okay.
Please set a timer with a new name.
Apparently I did. Alexa, how long left on my timer?
You have 13 minutes left on your relish timer.
Okay, so all of the, we've still got another 13 minutes to go here, so we'll see what this looks like when it's done. Okay. Now these big pickles are the ones that I'm using for slicing. The little ones, if I have enough of the little ones, I'm going to use those just for munchables that you can pick up. Now I'm thinking that some of these ginormous ones may end up getting cut in half again. But, you know what, we'll see what we see. I can promise you that the bowl that I got out to put all those sliced pickles in is not quite big enough. I want to open one of these jars of relish right now and taste it, but that is just not quite how it goes. So I need to be patient for about another 12 minutes. Now the other thing that I managed to do today, talking about people who should know better, is I dropped my knife, my favorite knife. I love this knife. I use it every day, every day. Hello, Zen. And when I dropped the knife, the tip of it got me right in the shin, and I didn't realize that that had happened. I'm glad you joined us, Zen. And I didn't know until I looked down and I had a little drop of blood running down my leg. So, be careful with your knives, kids. And keep them sharp. Okay. Taste test. So if you are here for the very first time, tell me where you're from. Tell me what makes your day special. Okay. Now you can see I still have a lot of pickles, or a lot of cucumbers to process here. So we are going to get it all done, but I'm not sure that it's going to happen today. Now the cucumbers that I just sliced, I am going to put those in a large tin bowl, and I'm going to sprinkle them with some salt, and I'm going to put a little bit of vinegar on them, and I'm going to leave them sit overnight. And that is going to be a wonderful thing. Okay, let's see if we can get a big bowl handed over. You know, I don't know just what I'm going to do when my production crew has to go back to his real job. Oh, here we go. Okay, now, let's see how many grams of cucumbers we have here. You know, I tell you guys all the time, weigh your food. If you weigh everything that you're doing, whether you're cooking something or dishing up your plate, you know exactly. Don't forget to zero your scale. You know exactly how to change or adjust your recipe. Now, this bowl so far has 1.3 kilograms of cucumbers in it. I'm just going to set that back there. 1,327 grams. Okay, so let's keep cutting a couple more of these cucumbers. They're all going to be dills from now for the rest of this pail, so we can just keep cutting these bigger ones because I don't want them in the jar with the littler ones. I want them in slices. Now, I don't know whether you all do keto or not, but if you were here a little earlier, you would have heard me say that we eat hamburgers and hot dogs, which is very true. And just because you're doing keto does not mean that you have to give up everything that you love. It means that you need to find new things, new ways to do things. So that is a lot of what we do when we get together here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. No, not Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm having a moment. We get together on Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain. Okay. I'm thinking that's another big one. We'll put that one in there. You know, I think it is a good thing that I do not have a mandolin right now because this is an opportunity for me to practice my knife skills, which are not going to be perfect, but they are what they are. Now, Alexa, how much time left on my timer?
You have 7 minutes and 20 seconds left on your relish timer.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, guys. We have another 10 minutes together because once this relish is done, I'm going to take it out and I'm going to crack the little one open that has the peppers in it. And I'm going to do a taste test and let you know whether this recipe is worth repeating. I'm thinking it is because I've already done a bit of a taste test, but not once it's cooked. And really, the jar that is only part full is not going to take quite as long to cook. Now, let me just going to add a little more water in here. And see if we can't get this jar standing down in here properly. Possibly not so much. We'll see. Yeah, probably not so much. Okay. That's going to slow down our boil a little bit, but you should have the water over the top of the canning jars by about an inch, but because that one is going to be opened up and used right away, I'm not too terribly concerned about it. But the other ones, the other two jars, you definitely want to make sure. And yeah, I'm thinking they are going to be awesome. Okay, so I have 1.724 kgs of pickles. Should I cut some more up? Okay. Now, the next time I have an urge to start canning something, I will be a little more organized and I'll invite you guys into the kitchen again. I'm going to have to be a lot more organized because I'm going to be here all by myself next time, likely. Okay. Alexa, how much time is left on our timer?
You have 4 minutes and 50 seconds left on your relish timer.
Oh, we are just, so close. So close, so close. Well, I am going to sign off for right now because it looks like I'm hanging out here by myself. But I'll tell you what, I will be taking some pictures of the relish. Needing a couple of cucumbers on the way. And I will definitely let you know how they turned out. So, the extra live, thank you for joining me, and still, I hope you do your very best to live your best version of this shining life.